The quiet Montana prairie exploded with a sharp, desperate scream, scattering birds into the cloudless sky. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Cole Maddox reined in his bay stallion on a rocky ridge, eyes narrowing as a thin swirl of dust rose from the valley below. Something was wrong. Without a heartbeat of hesitation, he pressed his spurs and sent the horse thundering downhill toward the trouble. It was the spring of 1873. Cole, known across the territory as a hard-riding horse wrangler, had been trailing a band of wild mustangs when the cry cut through the stillness. As he neared the small homestead, the full ruin came into view. A humble cabin collapsed like a house of cards, soaked earth and heavy spring rains having betrayed its foundation. "Hello," he called, swinging out of the saddle before the horse even stopped. "Anyone alive in there?" A thin wail answered a baby's cry, high and piercing, followed by a woman's voice, faint but fierce. "Help us. Please." Through the tangle of broken timbers, Cole spotted a dirt-streaked young face no more than 25, clutching a tiny bundle to her chest. "Ma'am, I'll get you out," he promised, sizing up the splintered wreck. "My baby," she whispered, lips trembling. "Please, save my baby first." The plea hit him like a blow. He'd seen plenty of hardship in his 30 years, but the courage in her eyes stirred something buried deep inside him. "I'll get you both," he said, voice steady as iron. "What's your name, ma'am, Belle?" "Belle Rowan," she managed. "I'm Cole Maddox. Folks call me Cole. And this little one, Lila," she said, glancing down at the whimpering infant. "She's only 4 months old." Cole set to work, powerful hands ripping aside broken boards and shattered furniture. The midday sun hammered down until sweat soaked through his faded blue shirt. He stripped it off, wrapping the fabric around his raw hands, and dug harder. Minutes stretched like hours. His fingers bled, but he barely noticed only Belle, and the baby mattered. "How are you holding up, Belle?" he called now and again, needing to hear her voice. Still here, she would answer each time weaker. "Lila's sleeping. I think she's all right." Cole levered at a heavy roof beam. It groaned dangerously. "Stop," Belle gasped. "The whole thing will come down." He froze. She was right, the beam was holding what little roof remained. He scanned the area fast. His horse stood ready, and an idea flashed. Working quick, he rigged a rope and looped it to the stallion, creating a crude counterpull. With careful commands, he tightened the rope to keep the beam braced. "Belle, I'm taking Lila first," he said, reaching into the gap. She nodded, tears streaking her dirt-smudged cheeks, and reluctantly let him lift the baby free. The infant wailed until he tucked her safely into a nest of saddlebags. "Now you," Cole said, reaching for Belle's outstretched hands. But she was pinned tighter than he'd feared. I can't feel my legs," she whispered, voice trembling. "Don't you worry," Cole said firmly, shoving down the knot of dread in his gut. "I'll do the moving for both of us." He dug with fierce determination as shadows lengthened across the wreckage. Night air would turn bitter fast, and Belle already shivered in shock. "Talk to me," he urged, prying loose another timber. "What brought you and the baby out here alone?" Her striking green eyes locked on him. "Not alone. My husband, Wade Cross, went to town for supplies 3 days ago. He should have been back yesterday." A flicker of disappointment stabbed through Cole, but he pushed it aside and kept working. "Then Wade will sure be thankful when he finds you and little Lila safe." Belle's face darkened. "If he comes back," she murmured, but said no more. At last, after endless straining, Cole lifted the last beam and pulled Belle free. She felt weightless in his arms, fragile as a bird. "I've got you," he said, as she cried out in pain. "You're safe now." By the time he settled Belle and Lila beside a small fire, a safe distance from the ruins, the sun was gone. He built a rough shelter with his bedroll and saddle blanket and did what he could for her bruised legs miraculously unbroken. "Thank you," Belle whispered, as he offered a canteen of cool water. The baby suckled contentedly, unharmed. Cole averted his eyes in quiet respect. Any man would have done the same, he said, though deep down he knew that wasn't exactly true on the wild Montana frontier. Baby Lila nursed quietly at her mother's breast, untouched by the chaos of the night. "You saved our lives, Belle," Rowan said in a soft, earnest voice. Cole Maddox shifted his gaze toward the fire, giving her privacy. "Any man would have done the same," he replied. Belle shook her head, a sudden strength in her tone. "No. Most would have kept riding or gone for help that never would have arrived in time." He couldn't argue. Silver Creek lay a full day's ride away. By then, the wrecked cabin would have folded in on itself. Cole stirred the fire with a stick. "What now? What about your home?" "It was hardly that," Belle said, her voice low and flat. "Wade chose this place over my protests. Too far out. Too alone." She brushed her hand over Lila's soft hair. "But it was all we had." Cole studied her in the flickering light, choosing his words with care. "And Wade, you sound unsure he's coming back." Her green eyes lifted to his, gauging the stranger who had pulled her and her baby from death. Finally, she spoke. "Wade Cross has a weakness for cards and whiskey. Every trip to town I wonder if he'll ever return." "I'm sorry," Cole said quietly. "No need," she answered with calm resolve. "I made my choices." Belle adjusted Lila, who slept peacefully. "I used to teach school back east. I should have known better than to trust a drifter's grand talk about Western fortunes." Cole admired her honesty. Most women would defend their absent husband. Belle Rowan wasn't most women. "I can take you to Silver Creek tomorrow," he offered. "There's a doctor who can tend those legs. Maybe Wade will be there. And if not..." His voice faded heavy with meaning. Belle caught the weight of it. Cole looked away, studying the stars as though they held answers. "Then we'll see about getting you on your feet again. I know good folks who'll lend a hand until you choose what's next." She was quiet for a long beat. "Why help strangers this way?" It was fair to ask. Cole Maddox had spent years avoiding entanglements, breaking horses, and scouting the backcountry. "I know what it is to stand alone against this country," he said at last. No mother and child should face that. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that felt older than their brief acquaintance. Belle gave a small nod, accepting both his answer and his offer. That night, Cole slept light, rising twice to check the fire and their comfort. Each time he found Belle awake, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite name. Morning broke crisp and pink over the ridges. Cole brewed coffee and softened hardtack for Belle, outlining his plan. "My horse can carry you and Lila. I'll walk. We should reach Silver Creek by sundown if we start soon." Belle tried to stand, wincing as weight touched her bruised legs. Instantly, Cole was there, steadying her. "I'd only slow you down," she said. "You'd do better to ride ahead and send a wagon back. And leave you out here with no shelter?" Cole shook his head. "Not a chance." "Mrs. Belle," she corrected softly. "After all you've done, formal titles don't fit." He allowed a quick smile. "Belle it is." Before leaving, he insisted on salvaging what he could from the ruins. Piece by piece, he unearthed a small trunk with her clothes and keepsakes, a few kitchen tools, and a silver locket bearing her parents' likeness. "I thought this was gone," Belle whispered, clutching it tight. "It's all I have of them." Sometimes fortune favors the stubborn, Cole said, warmed by her smile. With Lila secured in a sling across her mother's chest, and Belle riding side saddle on his strong bay, they started toward Silver Creek. The pace was slow but steady, pausing often for the baby. Conversation came easily as the miles passed. Cole spoke of his Missouri boyhood on a horse farm and the restless pull that brought him west after the war. Belle told of teaching in Pennsylvania, the influenza that stole her parents, and her whirlwind marriage to Wade Cross, whose grand promises had quickly outpaced his means. He could paint the prettiest future she recalled, stroking Lila's back as the baby dozed. By the time I saw through it, we were already across the Mississippi. And now Cole asked gently. Belle's gaze lingered on the far mountains. Now I have Lila. I can't drag her from place to place chasing Wade's next big plan. She deserves steadiness and safety. I'll give her that with or without him. Cole's respect for her deepened. Many women would have yielded to despair. Belle Rowan stood firm. As the sun slid westward, the scattered roofs of Silver Creek finally appeared. Cole felt an unexpected pang as the town drew near. The day's long ride had knit an easy closeness between them, one he knew would change once they stepped back among people. We'll get you a warm room at the boarding house, Cole Maddox told Belle Rowan as they stepped onto Silver Creek's main street. Nettie Brooks runs the place. She'll see you and Lila comfortable while we figure things out. Belle gave a small nod, though worry darkened her eyes. And if Wade is in town, then the choice of what comes next is yours, Cole said carefully. No one else's. Folks along the dusty street watched the unlikely trio with open curiosity as they headed for the big weathered building trimmed with lace curtains. Cole helped Belle down from his horse, steadying her as her sore legs found their footing. The door opened before they reached it. Nettie Brooks, round and brisk with sharp gray eyes and a ready smile, planted her hands on her hips. Cole Maddox, don't tell me you've finally given up roaming and brought home a wife? Heat crept up Cole's neck. It's not like that, Nettie. Belle Rowan and her baby were trapped when their cabin collapsed. I'm just making sure they're safe. Nettie's look softened to instant concern. You poor dear, she said, hurrying to Belle's side. Come inside right now, you look ready to drop. Cole stayed on the porch as Nettie bustled Belle and Lila inside, promising hot food, a clean bed, and a warm bath. Just before the door closed, Belle glanced back, gratitude and a trace of sadness in her eyes. Thank you for everything. He tipped his hat, awkward. I'll stop by tomorrow. Need to ask around about Wade anyway. The mention of her husband dimmed the light in her face, but she nodded. Tomorrow, then. When the door shut, Cole lingered a moment, strangely hollow, before leading his horse toward the livery. He had questions to ask. The Golden Nugget Saloon, noisy and smoke-filled, was Silver Creek's well of information. Cole pushed through the batwing doors, scanning faces. Well, look what the wind dragged in, boomed Hank Crow, the barrel-chested barkeep. Thought you were out chasing wild stock Maddox. Plans changed, Cole said, stepping up to the bar. I need word on a man named Wade Cross. Might have been through here lately. Hank's thick brows rose. Cross, yeah. Spent 3 days losing every dime at poker, then bet it all on a sure thing that wasn't. A cold weight settled in Cole's stomach. Where is he now? Hank traded a look with a weathered cowhand. Boot Hill, the cowboy said flatly. Picked a fight with Rex Crane over cheating. Truth was, Cross had the crooked cards. Got himself shot. Marshal Troy Beck called it clean self-defense. Cole closed his eyes briefly. Belle was already a widow, though she didn't know it. Lila had no father. When he asked, voice tight. 2 nights back, Hank replied. Rex has moved on. Cole threw back a shot of whiskey, the burn doing nothing to ease the knot inside, and walked into the cool night. He drifted through the quiet streets, turning over how to break the news. Would Belle weep for the man she'd doubted, or feel a guilty relief with worry for the road ahead? He stopped outside the boarding house, gazing at a lamp-lit window where he pictured Belle tucking Lila in. He couldn't shatter her small peace tonight. "Tomorrow," he murmured. "I'll tell her tomorrow." Morning came raw and gray clouds, heavy with rain. Cole had slept poorly, haunted by the memory of her face when she would hear the truth. He shaved and dressed with care, as if neatness might soften the blow. At Nettie Brooks's door, he was met with quiet concern. "She's in the parlor," Nettie said. "Doctor stopped by, just bruises and exhaustion. The baby's a miracle, not a scratch. She's been asking for Wade." I couldn't bring myself to tell her what the town already knows. "I'll do it," Cole said. Belle sat near the window, Lila asleep in a borrowed cradle. Clean and rested, she looked radiant. Her beauty, the kind that ran deeper than paint or lace. Hope flickered in her eyes when she saw him, then faded as she read the truth in his face. "He's dead, isn't he?" she asked quietly. Cole removed his hat, turning the brim in his hands. "Yes. I'm sorry, Belle." She absorbed the words with calm strength, her gaze resting on her sleeping child. How he weighed, softening the truth, but chose honesty. Gunfight. He accused a man of cheating at cards. It went bad fast. A wry, bitter smile touched her lips. "Of course. That sounds like Wade always sure someone else caused his troubles." Her eyes met Cole's steady. "Did he lose the money meant for supplies first?" Cole hesitated, then nodded. "From what I learned, yes." Belle closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, a clear, resolute light shone there, stronger than grief and sharper than despair. "Then I truly stand on my own now, Belle," Rowan said almost to herself. "I guessed as much when Wade didn't come back, but guessing and knowing are two different things." Cole Maddox stepped closer. "You're not alone, Belle. Folks in this town will help you get settled." "And then what?" Her green eyes sparked with sudden fire. "Live on charity until I can catch another husband. Be known as the widow with the fatherless child." The force of her words stopped him cold. "I didn't mean," I know she cut in her voice, easing. "You've been nothing but kind. But I've let others chart my course for too long, first my parents, then Wade. I have to stand on my own now for Lila, if not for myself." Cole admired her grit even as worry pricked at him. "What will you do?" Belle glanced around the tidy parlor. "Nettie Brooks mentioned the school needs a teacher. The last one left to marry 2 months back. You'd stay in Silver Creek." His surprise showed. "Why not?" "It's a good town, and Lila and I need a home. Unless you think there's reason we shouldn't." The question carried more weight than her calm voice let on. Cole's cautious side urged him to keep his distance, but something deeper overruled it. "I think Silver Creek would be lucky to have you, both of you," he said quietly. Relief softened her features into something warmer. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Silence settled, broken only by Lila's sleepy murmur from her cradle. Cole cleared his throat. "There'll be arrangements to make for Wade, I mean." Belle's eyes steadied. "I suppose so, though I doubt he left enough for a proper burial." "I can help with that," Cole offered. She shook her head with quiet resolve. "You've done more than enough. I'll speak with Marshal Troy Beck about the simplest way." Wade wouldn't have wanted a fuss anyway. Cole respected the pride in her stance, even as he wished to shoulder more of her burden. "At least let me speak to the school board for you. Zeke Porter owes me a favor." A small smile touched her lips. "Very well. I'll accept that, and gladly." The next few days passed in a blur. Wade Cross was laid to rest in a plain graveside service attended only by Belle Cole and Pastor Clyde Boone. Belle stood dry-eyed, Lila bundled close, her face marked more by resolve than grief. He had his good moments, she told Cole as they walked back. He could make me laugh like no one else, and he was excited to be a father. I think he believed each new scheme would finally work out. But Cole prompted gently. "But good intentions can pave more than the road to hell," she said with a sigh. They pave the road to empty cupboards and leaky roofs, and disappointment after disappointment. Cole nodded, understanding. He'd known men like Wade dreamers who chased horizons and left practical matters to others. True to his word, Cole met with Zeke Porter. The stern rancher head of the school board barely needed convincing. "We're desperate for a steady teacher," Zeke admitted. "If Mrs. Rowan can start right off, the job is hers." Within a week of her rescue, Belle Rowan had stepped into her new role as Silver Creek's school teacher. She and Lila moved into a small but snug room behind the schoolhouse. Nettie Brooks and the townswomen rallied with furniture linens and clothes to help her set up a home. Cole kept a respectful distance, knowing Belle needed to prove her independence. Still, he stopped by with thoughtful gifts, a rocking chair he'd bartered for a hand-carved toy for Lila, always careful not to linger long enough to stir gossip. Spring ripened into summer. Cole returned to training horses for nearby ranchers, though he found himself in Silver Creek more often than ever. If anyone noticed how his visits often coincided with the end of the school day, they kindly kept it to themselves. One late July afternoon, Cole arrived just as the last children scampered out of the schoolhouse. Belle stood on the steps, her smile bright as morning sun. She looked stronger now, cheeks glowing with health, those striking green eyes full of life. Her light brown hair, neatly tied in a workday bun, reminded him of the one Sunday he'd seen it spill loose, a memory he hadn't shaken since. "Mr. Maddox," she greeted, formal in public, but warmly. "Thought I might walk you and Lila home," he said, removing his hat. "If that suits you, it surely suits me," Belle replied, a gentle light in her face. "Let me gather my things." As they strolled the short lane to Belle Rowan's small quarters, little Lila babbled happily from her mother's arms and stretched chubby fingers toward Cole Maddox, the moment she saw him. Without thinking, he offered a calloused finger, and she latched on with surprising strength. "She remembers you," Belle said, with a fond smile. "She always lights up when you come by. Sharp as a whip takes after her mama," Cole teased, pulling a funny face that made Lila giggle. A faint flush touched Belle's cheeks. At her door she hesitated, then asked, "Would you care for some coffee?" "It's freshly brewed." Inside, the modest quarters glowed with simple charm. Wildflowers brightened the table, and handmade curtains framed the windows. Books, her cherished possessions, lined a sturdy shelf Cole himself had built a month earlier. "How are the youngsters learning?" he asked as she poured coffee into two mismatched mugs. "Better than I dared hope," Belle replied, settling Lila on a quilt with her toys. "Billy Porter is already sounding out words, and he's only 5. Zeke pretends not to notice, but I catch him grinning whenever Billy recites his letters." Cole chuckled, then asked, "And that black stallion I told you about, any luck on my end, you think?" They slipped into easy talk. Cole shared thoughts he rarely voiced, while Belle spoke of her hopes for the school and dreams for Lila's future. Time drifted until long shadows warned him of the hour. "I should go," he said reluctantly, standing. "People might talk if I stay too late." Belle's face clouded. "People already talk, Cole. Seems a widow should either mourn forever or hunt for a new husband. My comfort with independence puzzles them." He searched her eyes. "Does that bother you?" "Not for myself," she said after a pause. "But I worry for Lila, and for you, for me." He blinked in surprise. "You've been so kind, yet you keep a careful distance. I've wondered if it's to guard your reputation from being tied to a woman some might judge." Cole raked a hand through his hair. "Belle, no. That's not it at all. I kept back because I thought it's what you wanted needed. You spoke so fiercely about standing on your own." Her eyes widened slightly. "What I wanted? The last thing I meant was to impose where I wasn't welcome," he said quietly. Understanding softened her look, a flicker of amusement playing at the corners of her mouth. "Oh, Cole, for a man so sharp with horses, you can be mighty blind about people." Before he could answer, Lila fussed, breaking the moment. Belle lifted her daughter, ready for the evening feeding. "Perhaps we can finish this talk another time," she said, a new warmth in her voice. Sunday after church, Nettie Brooks offered to watch Lila so I could have an afternoon free. Cole's heart thumped hard. Sunday, he agreed. "I'll come after the service." The days crawled by. He found himself distracted at work, drawing teasing remarks from the ranch hands when he nearly let a half-broke colt bolt. Sunday dawned cloudless, as if the prairie itself approved. Cole, who seldom set foot in church, found his eyes drawn again and again to Belle, seated near the front, Lila on her lap, Lila on her. She wore a deep blue dress that set off her coloring, and her hair was styled more carefully than usual. After the service, he waited while she handed Lila to Nettie, who gave him a knowing smile. When Belle approached with a small picnic basket, his mouth went dry. "I thought we might have a picnic," she suggested. "Down by the creek, it stays cool there." They walked in companionable silence beyond the edge of town until they found a cottonwood whose shade lay over a quiet bend of water. Belle spread a blanket and unpacked her basket, fresh bread, cheese, dried apples, and 2 slices of Nettie's famous berry pie. "This is quite a spread," Cole said as he helped arrange the meal. "A little celebration," she answered with a mysterious smile. "What are we celebrating? New beginnings and some needed clarity." They ate and talked easily, joking about the harvest festival preparations, swapping stories of his horse training and a comical chase involving Mayor Grant Steele's wife and a runaway chicken. When the pie was gone, Belle grew thoughtful fingers playing with the blanket's edge. "I've been thinking about what you said, keeping your distance out of respect for my independence." It seemed right, Cole admitted, suddenly tense. It was thoughtful, she said, but maybe unnecessary. His heart jumped. How so? Meeting his gaze, she spoke with quiet courage. "Independence doesn't mean being alone. It means choosing for myself, including the choice to welcome someone into my life." "Into our lives," she added, glancing toward where Lila napped. Cole swallowed hard. "And is that someone you'd choose?" "Not someone," Belle said softly. "You." The world seemed to still, the creek's murmur and birdsong fading to nothing. "Belle," he said, voice rough with feeling. "I'm not a wealthy man. I don't have riches to give, just honest work and a heart that won't quit," Cole Maddox said quietly. "That's worth more than gold to me, Belle." Rowan answered, her voice steady. "I've had enough of smooth talk and empty promises. I'd rather build a life on sweat and true devotion." Cole reached across the blanket, taking her hand. Her fingers, slim yet strong, bore the faint calluses of a woman who labored without complaint. He brushed his thumb over her knuckles, struck by how perfectly their hands fit. "I've never felt for anyone what I feel for you," he confessed. "From the moment I pulled you out of that broken cabin, something inside me shifted. It scared me. Still does." "What frightens you?" she asked softly. "How quickly I care. And the thought that I might not be enough for you and Lila." Belle inched closer, laying her free hand against his cheek. You dug through a caved-in cabin with your bare hands to save a woman and child you didn't even know. If that isn't enough, nothing ever will be. The space between them vanished. Cole slid his arms around her waist, drawing her near. Her eyes closed as their lips met the kiss, starting gentle, then deepening with months of quiet longing set free. When they finally broke apart, breathless, he rested his forehead to hers. "I love you," he whispered. "Both of you. I think I have from the start." Tears shone in Belle's eyes, her smile radiant. "And we love you. Lila already does, and she paused, steadying her breath. "I've come to count on you more than I dared admit. You don't have to hold back." Cole promised. Depending on someone who stands beside you isn't weakness, it's partnership. They lingered by the creek all afternoon, speaking of hopes and plans, cautious but full of heart. As sunset blazed across the prairie, they packed up their picnic and started toward town. Belle's lips curved in a teasing smile as Cole openly laced his fingers with hers. "People will talk now. Let them," he said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "Though maybe we ought to give them something worth talking about." She tilted her head, questioning. "Marry me?" Cole said simply. "Not tomorrow or next week, whenever you're ready. But no, that's what I want, a life with you and Lila, a family of our own." Belle stopped, turning to face him in the fading gold light. "Are you sure, taking on another man's child, a woman with a past?" He touched a finger to her lips. "Lila is a blessing, not a burden, and everything you've lived through made you the woman I love. I've never been surer of anything." Joy lit her face. "Then yes, Cole Maddox, I'll marry you. We'll build that life together, all three of us." The months that followed carried both swift changes and quiet growth. Cole kept training horses, but began raising a cabin of his own, using the savings from years of solitary work. He chose land just outside Silver Creek, close enough for Belle to keep teaching until they decided otherwise. They wed in October beneath aspen trees turned brilliant gold. The whole town came out to celebrate the schoolteacher who had won their hearts and the lone horseman who had found his family in the most unexpected way. Lila, now crawling and eager to talk, stole the show in a tiny white dress Nettie Brooks had sewn. When Pastor Clyde Boone pronounced them husband and wife, Cole held the baby as he kissed his bride, a perfect sign of the family already formed. Their new home was finished just ahead of the first snowfall, a stout 4-room cabin with mountain and prairie views. Cole had insisted on heavy beams and a solid stone foundation, memories of the collapsed cabin sharpening every decision. Belle smiled at his care, understanding the love in every nail and board. Winter wrapped the prairie in white. On Christmas Eve, with Lila asleep in the cradle, Cole had built. They sat by a crackling fire, soaking in the quiet joy of their first Christmas as a family. "I have something for you," Belle said, pulling a small bundle from behind a cushion. It isn't much, but inside the cloth lay a hand-stitched leather wallet, his initials sewn neatly into the corner. "It's perfect," Cole said, running his fingers over the careful work. "Thank you." "Open it," she urged, a touch of nervousness in her voice. He unfolded the wallet to find a small drawing, Belle's delicate sketch of their family himself, Belle Lila, and a tiny new figure beside Lila. His eyes flew to hers. In June, she confirmed, resting a hand on her still flat stomach. "Our family is growing." Cole's whoop of joy startled Lila awake, and she wailed at the disturbance. Laughing, they soothed her together, Belle singing a soft lullaby, while Cole held their daughter close. As Lila drifted back to sleep, He met Belle's gaze over the baby's head. "Did you ever think that day when your cabin fell, we'd end up here?" he asked quietly. Belle shook her head thoughtful. "I only wanted to keep Lila alive. The future wasn't something I dared imagine. And now the future feels like a gift I open every morning beside you." Cole laid Lila gently back in her cradle, then drew Belle into his arms. "I never believed in fate," he murmured into her hair, "but something led me to that ridge at just the right moment, something that made me hear your cry when I might have ridden on by. Maybe it's simply who you are, Belle," Rowan murmured, brushing a kiss along Cole Maddox's jaw. "A man who can't ride past a cry for help. A man who'd claw through wreckage with his bare hands to save a mother and child." "Not strangers," Cole corrected, drawing her closer. "Family I just hadn't met yet." Outside, snow drifted in quiet layers around their sturdy home. Inside a deeper shelter wrapped them one built of devotion and choice, stronger than timber and stone. When spring finally swept across the plains, life burst forth everywhere in wildflowers speckling the prairie, in little Lila's wobbly first steps across the cabin floor, and in the gentle swell of Belle's belly. Cole watched with awe as she moved through each day teaching, until Zeke Porter and the school board insisted she rest, sparking Lila's endless curiosity and helping him build their growing horse ranch. "You're staring again," Belle teased one evening, her mending forgotten in her lap as she watched the sunset blaze. "Can't help it," Cole said without shame. "You're beautiful." She laughed clear as the creek that ran near their land. "I feel as big as one of your horses." "Twice as lovely," he countered, kneeling beside her chair. He laid a gentle hand on her rounded belly, feeling the sure kicks of their child kicks that meant the world. Their son came early in June, a strong baby with a shock of dark hair and a chin set with quiet resolve. They named him Luke for Belle's late father, though Cole called him Luke from the start, a name of strength and promise. Lila, now walking confidently and chattering in bright sentences, approached her baby brother with solemn wonder. "My baby?" she asked, peering up at Belle with those green eyes so like her mother's. "Our baby," Belle corrected softly. "Your brother. You'll help Mama care for him, won't you?" The little girl nodded gravely and reached out to pat Luke's tiny hand with careful tenderness. Cole felt his chest tighten with pride. His wife and their 2 children bound to him by love, deeper than blood. That night, after Luke slept and Lila finally drifted off, Cole found Belle on the porch, her face lifted to a star-swept sky. "Should you be up?" he asked, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Probably not," she said with a quiet smile, leaning into him. "But I needed a moment to marvel. 3 years ago, I was a naive schoolteacher chasing a dreamer west. 2 years ago, I lay beneath a fallen cabin, certain Lila and I would die. And now," she gestured toward the peaceful house behind them, "now I have everything I once thought impossible." Cole tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear with tender familiarity. "We've been blessed," he agreed, "though I still say it was my expert horse tracking that led me to you." She laughed, rising on tiptoe to kiss him. "And I thought it was my ear-splitting screams." "That too," he said with a grin. "You've many talents, Mrs. Maddox." "And you, Mr. Maddox," she replied softly, "chief among them your great capacity to love. Lila loves you as if you were her father from the start. This land thrives under your care. And I am loved beyond anything I ever dreamed." Cole drew her closer, resting his cheek on her hair. "You make it easy. Loving you. Lila and now Luke feels as natural as breathing." The night settled around them, the prairie alive with gentle sounds. From inside came Luke's soft cry. Belle sighed, though her eyes shone with contentment. Duty calls. Before she could step inside, Cole caught her hand. "I'll never regret a moment," he said quietly. "From clawing through that wrecked cabin to midnight feedings, it's all been worth it." Belle's smile carried the warmth of their whole life together. "I know. It's been worth every breath for me, too." The years rolled on rich in quiet blessings. Cole's skill with horses earned steady income and a strong reputation. Belle eventually opened a small school right on their ranch once Luke reached learning age, joined later by their daughter Nora. Lila blossomed into a striking young woman with her mother's wit and her father's steady hands. Though she always knew the truth of her birth, she counted Cole as her true father in every way. On the 20th anniversary of the day, Cole dug Belle and Lila from that fallen cabin. The entire Maddox family gathered to honor their beginning. Their home had grown, but the original cabin still stood at its heart, a symbol of all they had built. "A toast," Cole said, lifting his glass at the long dining table that had hosted countless meals and late-night talks. "To collapsed cabins and the treasures they hide." Belle laughed, fine lines of joy at her eyes. At 45, she was lovelier than ever, her beauty deepened by confidence and peace. "To bare hands and brave hearts," she answered, raising her own glass. Their children joined in Lila, now 21 and newly engaged. Luke 19 and planning to study veterinary medicine back east. Nora 17 and her father's lively mirror. And Jake, their surprise blessing, who had arrived when Belle was 40. Each echoed the toast in turn, understanding or sensing its meaning. Later, after the younger ones were asleep, and Lila had gone off with her fiancé, Cole, and Belle sat together on the porch swing that had replaced their first rough-hewn bench. 20 years, Cole said, his arm around her, in a gesture as natural as breath. "Some days it feels like yesterday." And some days Belle replied, her head on his shoulder. "It feels like a different lifetime one lived by strangers." He nodded, understanding perfectly. Through the years, they had been reshaped by every joy and trial, molded by triumphs and hard seasons alike. The once widowed schoolteacher and the lone horseman were now true partners, their lives so tightly braided that neither could picture a day apart from the other. "You ever think about what might have happened if I hadn't heard you call out that day?" Cole Maddox asked, giving voice to the thought that sometimes drifted through his dreams. "If I'd been just a little farther off, or if the wind had carried your cry the other way?" Belle Rowan stayed quiet for a long moment, considering. "I used to wonder that, especially early on. But I've come to believe some things are simply meant. Not like fate written in stone, but like unseen currents drawing certain souls together." She turned to look up at him, eyes soft in the starlight. "Maybe we would have crossed paths some other way, some other time. I think we were bound to find each other." Cole pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, his heart full of the steady happiness that defined his life. "I like that thought that no matter what, we'd have found our way to this place." "This very good life," Belle said, leaning closer against the evening chill as the first stars kindled overhead. Cole's mind wandered back over their long road from that frantic rescue to a love that deepened with every passing year. The memory of digging through broken timbers with bare, bleeding hands remained sharp, but now it felt like just the opening chapter in a far richer story. A family bound not by blood alone, but by steadfast choice. "I love you, Belle Maddox," he murmured into the quiet night. "Today and always." Her hand found his with practiced ease. "And I love you, Cole Maddox, for saving us then and for every single day since." They sat in easy silence, listening to the familiar sounds of their land wind in the cottonwoods, a distant nicker from the barn, surrounded by the life they had built together. What began in danger had blossomed into something enduring and strong, as sure and lasting as the hands that once dug through rubble to find the greatest treasures Cole would ever know. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us to discover more true tales of the Wild West. Stories that honor resilience, tenderness, and the spirit that God placed in those who blazed the trail. Subscribe, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join us once again to journey across this untamed land. Thank you.